So yeah, let's go into shadowing. Now, shadowing is extremely important. Shadowing allows us to view the explosion as a 3D object, basically, and it gives a much more natural feeling to the whole product. So basically, most people have trouble with shadows. So over here I'm going to try to explain it quite briefly and quite straightforward so you guys understand. Basically, the way I do it is first identify certain circles in the head of the explosion. So the dotted lines shows circle's second half. So basically, if we look at the dotted lines, we will notice that they complete a circle in the head. So over here we have an ellipse, if you may, some sort of ellipse. Over here we could have another circle. Over here another one, and so on until the whole head is pretty much filled with these little circles. You can also have more implicit circles which are not shown explicitly in the head of the explosion, but we could have one circle here or one here and so on. And these will allow us to actually add the shadows in. You don't have to actually draw the dotted lines. I just drew them so you guys could understand easier. So once we have that, what are we going to do? Well, simple enough, you are going to fill in with shadows of these paths between the circles. Not the circles, but the paths between them. So it will look something like that. Okay? So the shadows here are filled in. They fill in the paths between them. They basically mark the limits of each circle. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all they do. They mark the limits of the circles. So now we have our shadows in. And basically when you're done, you want to make them look much more realistic. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways that you could go about that is changing the colors. What I like to do is basically ignore the shadows for a second and pick up the tone of the explosion, of the body of the explosion, and make it a little bit darker and color the shadows with that new tone. And it will look something like this. Over here we can see that we have a dark red shadow, which looks far more realistic and much more convincing than the pitch black shadows. So yeah, once you have that tone settled, you can go on and make it much more realistic. And how do we do that? We add blurs. So blurs allow us to make it seem like the smoke is actually smoke. And it looks quite good, actually. That's why I added. And here I added a little note which says blur between 3 to 5. Now, you don't want to blur the shadows too much, because if you do, it will look disgusting, basically. It wouldn't be clear that they are shadows. And if you have too little blur, it will look just like this. I mean, and it doesn't make any difference. So you want a blur between 3 to 5, no more, no less. Well, you could experiment if you wish, depending on the size of the explosion and so on, but it all depends. It all depends. Just experiment. So when you have all of the frames with shadows, you are pretty much done with the actual explosion. But now you can go ahead and play with some extra elements. Now, in this case, in particular, I added shadows. I have my little shadow layer there. But I added something more. I added some brightness to it, some bright ovals here, which represent glow and allow me to make the explosion seem brighter, which are here, for instance. These are just some of the options you may have to basically edit or change your explosions to make them more unique or appealing. So this is the way I went, basically with the ovals, a little bit of glow, and it makes it look brighter. In this case, we have some debris. These particles are showing of those external elements that are affected by the explosion. So for instance, if the explosion occurred in a desert, there would probably be a lot of sand all around, and all that stuff is known as debris. So this is one type of debris, particles, for instance. Over here, I worked with a little circle with a gradient color, and it allowed me to add a glow into the first frame of the explosion to make it seem bright before the explosion itself. Over here we have some light rays, which are always nice. They look good, I guess. Over here we have another type of debris, which is dust. And finally we have some cracks on the ground, which can be left over by the explosion. And well, these are only a few. I mean, you can test whatever you wish, and after testing a lot of things and trying a lot of elements, you will finally find a style of explosion you enjoy and you think looks good, which you can work with through with your animations all along. So that's important thing. Find your own style, find the things you want, and understand explosion. That's why I made this tutorial. My main goal with this was to allow you to understand explosions, like right on, know how they work, know what involves an explosion and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for the tutorial, I guess. So yeah, we cover parts, the 3 parts: base, torso, and head. Coloring, the more heat or the higher temperature colors and the less temperature colors. We covered the shadowing with the circles and the effects, and we covered some extras. These are some ideas which you might want to try, and you're free to do so, but feel free also to try your own things and experiment with other elements which I haven't mentioned here. Those could work just fine or even better. So yeah, over here at the right, I'm going to leave you a link to a video on explosions from anime series and whatnot. And on the left, you can watch some realistic explosions, like real actual explosions. And basically, I'm leaving you these so that you can study how explosions react and how they develop. And maybe some of your doubts on explosions could even be solved by watching these videos. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the tutorial, guys. I hope it helped a lot. And if it did, please press the like button. That really means a lot to me. And feel free also to post some comments or requests on new tutorials I should make and whatnot. I'm going to try to make these more often, because I usually do not add a lot of things to my channel, and I want to. So yeah, if you feel free to request. And I guess that's pretty much it. I'll see you later, guys. Bye bye.